Alright, this is SSLFamilyDad, and today I'm going to show you how to turn one of these doors into one of these doors. Okay, so we've got our door here, and there's a couple things that we're going to need to do this project. I'll just go through a couple of them. It would be a good idea to have some type of a brad nailer. You could just use a hammer and some tiny brads if you would like, or some maybe wood glue, but having a pneumatic brad nailer or a battery powered brad nailer would be make this a lot easier. I like to use a chalk line, not necessary. A good straight edge and a pencil is totally fine, and that's what I'm using our level for here and our pencil to make some, obviously make some markings here, and a tape measure to measure things out. A good cup of coffee was always handy to have, and I'm using these. This is just a 1/2 inch, I believe, trim or molding, whatever you want to call it. They're pretty cheap. I think it was one of the cheapest ones. This was painted. I think I got this out of the scrap bin at Home Depot. They had this for 75% off, but because it was bent or something like that. But you can pick this up not painted. It's cheaper, is fine, or the painted ones is good. We're gonna paint over this anyway. So that's pretty much what you're gonna need to get started. So I'll take you in here and show you how I'm laying this out and getting things kind of marked out and ready to get started. Okay, so we're looking at the top of our door here, and with any 6-panel door that I've seen anyway, generally there's 2 smaller squares here at the top, and then there are 4 rectangular panels or whatever towards the bottom, middle and bottom. So first I want to lay everything out here. I want everything to be equally spaced, and so I've determined that a good 4 inches from the edge to start my first panel here is going to look nice. So I've measured in and made a mark 4 inches from this edge, as well as 4 inches from this edge. And same thing from the top, 4 inches from the top here, and 4 inches from the top here. I've done the same thing on the bottom of the door as well. And so that will make sure all my panels are at equal distance from the top and from the sides. Whenever you're trying to make something look symmetrical, you always want to measure in from each side individually, instead of measuring, here and then measuring all the way across from this side to make another mark. You always want to measure in equal distances from each edge so that you've got a perfect match from either side. That way it will always look symmetrical. Even if your measurements are a little bit off, the distance in the middle could be different, might not be exactly 4 inches, but it will look equal because it's the same distance from each edge. So I'm going to use a chalk line to lay out the grid here where I want everything to be laid out on this door. Again, you can use a long straight edge if you want, but a chalk line comes in real handy for these kinds of things. Okay, now that everything is laid out, I've got my complete pattern laid out here. Everything's evenly spaced. And again, the way I'm doing it here, 4 inches from the top, 4 inches from each side with a 4-inch gap in the center. There'll be 4 inches between my top square panel and my first rectangular panel. And then I'll take you down and show you the rest of it. But the bottom panel and the middle panel are 6 inches apart and 6 inches from the bottom. For the bottom panel. And I'll put all the dimensions and measurements for what I'm using here in the description of the video if you're interested in doing something just like this. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do here is actually just take a couple measurements of our inside squares and start cutting our moldings to fit. So we should be at about a 10-inch square here on the top part. And so we can go ahead and cut a bunch of 10-inch pieces. I'm going to use a miter saw to miter the corners at a 45-degree angle, and we'll get those nailed in with 1-inch brad nails. All right, once we have everything cut and in place here, just line everything up, make sure all our miters turned out okay. If there's a little bit of gap in the corners, that's okay. We can always come back with a little bit of paint and some caulk if we need to, and kind of fill in those. So just want to get them as close as possible here. And I'm just using 1-inch brad nails to tack these in place. Okay, so to fill up all these little finish nail holes that we have around here and some of the cracks that didn't line up exactly perfect, you can use whatever you want. You can use wood putty, you can use caulk. I've seen a lot of people do that with trim work. I just have some of this drywall spackling, which will work just fine for these small holes. It'll bond to the wood just fine. And so I'm just gonna use my finger and just take a little bit of it here and just kind of fill in all these gaps as much as I can, just with a tiny little bit. And then we'll wait for that to dry, sand it off just a little bit, and we'll be ready to paint. All right, well that pretty much wraps it up for this project. And for under $20, we were able to turn one of these ugly looking hollow core panel doors into something that looks much nicer. Looks a lot better down there at the end of the hall. So eventually all of our doors will mimic that, and we'll do that to all of them. I've already started fixing up some of the holes and things like that, and so we'll get these doors all cleaned up and do this to all of them. So it'll look a lot nicer down the hall here. But this isn't our original idea, and we actually saw this on that Design on a Dime show. So I can't take credit for this one, but it did turn out really well. I think total cost of the project was about 18 bucks with the paint and the moldings or trim. So definitely an easy and inexpensive way to make a door look a lot nicer. So if you guys have questions or comments, I'd love to hear from you. Throw those down below. As always, subscribe to the channel if you'd like to follow along and see other ideas and tips and tricks and all kinds of other homesteading and DIY type stuff that we have going on around the house here, outside and inside. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. Have a good one.